what organizations we want to partner with. And for that, we're only looking to partner with organizations whose kind of core values align with ours. It means the number one is that they have a vested interest in helping more young people get out and vote and kind of ensuring that there are elected officials that represent those interests. And that tends to cut off a pretty sizable swath of the population and means that we get to work with people and groups that we're really excited about.
I'm going to put a plug in for a previous guest of ours, which is Chicago Votes. So you should come to Illinois. I'm in Illinois. And Chicago Votes is an organization, nonpartisan, that just tries to get Chicago youth voting.
Oh my gosh, yes. If Chicago Votes is listening, look us up. We'll give you a call.
If they're not, I'm going to tag them on Twitter when this goes up. And so I guess that's sort of my next question is if there are groups and organizations that sort of fit that mold in, people who are listening to this or who see this on Twitter, can they get in touch with you and suggest their state as a good testing ground?
Yes, absolutely. We would love to hear from them. And the best thing to do, you can definitely message us on Twitter or social media, but you can also email our team at info@motivoteus.com. There are only 3 of us, so we will respond very promptly because we manage that inbox. We would really love to talk to anyone, just to get feedback and get your thoughts. The more people we have talked to about Motivote, it's made the product better. And then also if they are interested in partnering with us and using the tool to get out the vote among their membership or supporters.
This may go back to sort of your behavioral economics background with it, but as you've been testing this, I noticed that all of you who are working on this are women. And of course, we run across in this podcast a lot of women who are doing this sort of work. Are you finding that the kind of people who are responding and wanting to sign up and be on teams and talk to you about this, is there any sort of gender gap there, or is it fairly equal?
That's such an interesting question. Well, first I'll say that we feel especially strongly about amplifying the voices of women and using Motivote as a tool to do this. And women vote currently at rates slightly higher than men. And what we found for our most recent pilot is that it was like 60% female, 40% male in terms of users. And I mean, who knows if we can sort of extrapolate from that, but if I were to make an assumption, I would say that 2018 is, in a lot of ways, kind of the year of women's activism and women making their voices heard in a way that we haven't seen in a long time. And I'd have to imagine that hopefully helping them kind of tap into that energy, and it will probably have a slightly higher population of women using it than men, but we would love to be 50-50.
So do you have any sort of thoughts of what your numbers might be? Do you have sort of an upper capacity of what you could handle? Does this scale fairly easily? I'm just wondering sort of what your reach could be by November.
Mm-hmm. We have set a goal, a baseline goal of 5,000 users by November. If you look at, not to go back to 2016, but elections have been won and lost by far fewer votes. I was just reading actually about a U.S. Senate race, a United States Senate race in New Hampshire in the 70s that was decided by 2 votes, which is absurd. And the fact that people aren't talking about that, I had never heard of that was crazy. But we think that 5,000 is a conservative estimate. We'd like to get to more, but we have the capacity to get to 5,000, and that, again, if we're in a targeted number of states and a targeted number of districts, then that could move the needle.
Well, we've got 16,000 followers on Twitter. So if every single person on Twitter...
Yeah.
They're probably not all U.S. voters, and they might not all be in those states. But, I think 5,000
well, we
is
can take Motivote on the road. We'll travel for voting.
So actually, speaking of traveling, are you doing any live in-person events? What is sort of the rollout for this look like?
Yeah, we are hoping to make it down to Arkansas at some point before the election. We don't have that buttoned up yet. And then we're hoping to get to Florida as well in late August, but we will be having a road show at some point and talking to people, but don't have anything planned just yet.
Well, I'm going to do a plug for the super activists in Alabama.
Oh my gosh.
We have been shocked.
More.
Well, we have been shocked and surprised on this podcast. I know that Sophie will back me up on this, by just how amazing the young people in Alabama are right now about being super excited about running for office, about voting. It's been really surprising, but to me, I think it really comes out of the Doug Jones win for Senate, that special Senate race. And the people in Alabama are just fired up right now, and
it's been one of my favorite states to watch this year. It's just been so inspiring.
Oh wait, that's so great to hear. And now I'm going to pay closer attention. Maybe cut that off. But yeah, no, that's awesome. So are there any, like, in particular, any areas, any groups that or campaigns even that are doing really exciting work in Alabama?
Well, the Alabama 2nd Congressional District is considered a flippable seat this year. So I think people in that district are super motivated. The Democrats, obviously, but there's a runoff for the Republican primary that should be coming up really soon. So I think a lot of people in the Alabama 2nd, that's in the southern part of Alabama, are really motivated. But also the northeastern part of Alabama, we talked to a couple of women there who were in our Politics of Alabama episode who were really, really exciting and talking about all the activism that's happening up there. And there's a couple so the whole northern part of Alabama is the Alabama 5th Congressional District, stretches across the whole top part of the state. And there seem to be a lot of people really engaged in politics up there right now.
That's amazing. Oh, that's so good to hear. I love hearing stories like that. It makes me feel hopeful.
Yeah, I think one of the real stories of this year, this past 18 months or so, is people getting really a lot more engaged and paying attention and talking politics in places where you wouldn't normally. I was at a high school graduation party in Wisconsin yesterday and found myself talking to a bunch of 18-year-olds who had never voted before and saying, do you know what congressional district you are in? Let me look it up for you. Here's your district. Here's who your current rep is. You need to register to vote. So, and they seemed very receptive to it. So I think a lot more people are really thinking about it.
That's amazing. And that should be like a rite of passage when you graduate high school. Like, you should get handed your diploma and then a voter registration form that you have to fill out or get to fill out.
Have to.
yeah, let's just say have to.
Yeah, I don't know the legalese of that, but
me neither. I should not speak to that.
So is there anything else that you want to make sure that we talk about or that our listeners know about?
We covered a lot. I think the sort of big thing that we're excited about and feel strongly about is that there's like a ton of focus right now on registering new voters, and that's amazing. And that is absolutely the first step. But what we found is that it's hard to get a lot of information about elections. It's hard to know what sources to trust, and you can get people to register, but unless you're ensuring that they're following through, it's sort of all for naught. So we're excited about sort of completing the process and making sure that people stay engaged up until the election and then through the election. And yeah, it's an exciting time.
All right. And we will put links to your website and your social media up on our website as well, so that if you're listening to this and want to know how to find out more information, you can check that out.
Amazing. Well, thank you all for what you do, and talking about politics is super important and also really fun. And thank you for having us. This was great.
Great. Well, we can't help but talk about politics, and our husbands and kids get tired of it. So we have to do a podcast.
This is for family stability. I get it.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Two Broads Talking Politics. Our theme song is called Are You Listening? Off the album Elephant Shaped Trees by the band Imunari. and we're using it with express permission of the band. Our logo and all original artwork is by Matthew Weflin and is done expressly for Two Broads Talking Politics. We can be found on our website at twobroadstalkingpolitics.com. You can reach us by email at twobroadstalkingpolitics@gmail.com, on Twitter at twobroadstalk, on Facebook and Instagram, and you can support us on patreon.com. You can find our podcast on Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and anywhere podcasts are found. If you are interested in advertising on Two Broads Talking Politics, please email us at twobroadstalkingpolitics@gmail.com.